We are entrusting the day and the endeavor to the Lord. Let's go. Welcome to my channel where I visit many good books but live in the Bible. My name is Sarah Christine, and today I want to talk about Kazuo Ishiguro's The Buried Giant. I picked this up because one of my absolute favorite professors in undergrad, if you go to Howard or Georgetown University, you should definitely take Professor Christopher Shin. He is amazing. He recommended that I give Ishiguro another chance because I had read Never Let Me Go and had been both underwhelmed and slightly given the ick, but he's a Nobel Prize winner, so I was open to being convinced to pick up another book of his, and I am glad I did. Though, full disclaimer, I read Remains of the Day first, and I will do a review of this at some point because it is probably one of my absolute favorite books of all time. So subscribe and click the bell if you want to be notified when I do this review. But today, we're going to talk about The Buried Giant. Mild spoilers ahead if you have not read it. A brief summary. The Buried Giant is set in post-Arthurian Britain, and we are following an elderly couple, Beatrice and Axel, as they set off on a fantastical quest because they have realized they cannot remember more than a few days back, and so they decide, we need to figure out where our memories went. Beatrice is particularly insistent about this because she's concerned that without any recollection of their shared life, their love for each other won't last. Page 45, Beatrice says, "I'm wondering if without our memories, there's nothing for it but for our love to fade and die." Axel, at least initially, is not concerned about that. He is not going to let Beatrice, he calls her his princess, slip. He's like, I will tie you to my back before I let forgetfulness win. It is very Edward Cullen of him.
You better hold on tight, spider monkey.
For the record, Axel and Beatrice aren't the only ones who have been hit with the forgetfulness stick. As they quest, they discover that the entire region is enveloped in this memory leaching mist, and both their fellow Britons and the neighboring Saxons have been affected by it. Given the breadth and the depth of the memories that have been drained, Beatrice, who is our ideas woman, she's got the ideas, she's initially like, God's got to be the one to blame. I mean, who else would have both the means and the motive to take all these memories away? On page 76, Beatrice says, "Perhaps God's so deeply ashamed of us, of something we did, that he's wishing himself to forget. And when God won't remember, it's no wonder we're unable to do so." However, as The Buried Giant unfolds, it becomes apparent that God is not responsible. In fact, the culprit is someone much closer to home. It is someone that Axel himself knew a long time ago. Here, a word about the prose. In this novel, Ishiguro's writing is very restrained. The narrative voice isn't dazzling or funny as in Remains of the Day. It is pretty prosaic. However, I think it's intentional. I think it is a choice by Ishiguro to communicate that in this post-Arthurian landscape of muddlement and amnesia, it is not only memories, but language itself that has faded away. In fact, the choice that Ishiguro made to employ this more bare bones prose, I think echoes a choice that Beatrice and Axel have to make, which is, okay, now that we realize our memories have been taken away, do we want to recover all of them, the full Monte, good, bad, and ugly? Or do we just say, we'll let them fade? Now, recovery may seem like the obvious choice, but if The Buried Giant makes one thing plain, it's that memories can cut two ways. And if someone's recollections are particularly cruel or grave, wouldn't it be better if they were all fogged over and swept away? I mean, sure, some things are going to be lost, but peace will be maintained. And as some of the characters state, isn't it better that things would be bland or even blank than that they be fraught or pained? As it turns out, that is precisely the choice that was made. Beatrice's initial guess was correct. Something shameful did happen between the Britons and the Saxons. It was a blight on the land, a stain that just would not go away. It would have led to greater wrath, vengeance, and heartache. It couldn't be dealt with. It could only be erased. And if all these other memories had to go, that was a price that the empowered parties were willing to pay.
But it's a sacrifice I am willing to make.
To tell the truth, it might have been simplest if Ishiguro had had Beatrice and Axel rage against the injustice of having their memories, without their consent, just wiped away. But by The Buried Giant summit, both Beatrice and Axel are facing the recovery of their memories with more than a little trepidation. On page 249, Beatrice says, "There's a part of me that fears the mists fading. Can it be so with you, Axel?" And while he initially assuages her fears, he is that husband that is like, "It's gonna be okay, dear." He himself admits on page 297, "You and I longed for the mist's end, thinking only of our own dear memories. Yet who knows what old hatreds will loosen across the land now? Who knows what will come when quick-tongued men make ancient grievance rhyme with fresh desire for land and conquest?" Here is an appropriate place for a Jack Nicholson interlude.
You can't handle the truth!
To tell the truth, The Buried Giant includes a number of characters, not just Axel and Beatrice, who contend that some things are not worth remembering or better to forget. They're like, leave it, let it rest, don't unearth the giant, not ever, or at least not now, not yet. Honestly, I get it. Whether we are talking Ishiguro's world or our own, plenty of people argue that forgetfulness is helpful, maybe even essential for good relationships. And within The Buried Giant, on page 316, Axel asks Beatrice, "I was wondering, Princess, could it be our love would never have grown so strong down the years had the mist not robbed us the way it did? Perhaps it allowed old wounds to heal." For Axel, their memories theft provided him and Beatrice an opportunity to start fresh. And while I get the sentiment, another character in The Buried Giant points out that determined forgetfulness can often be a sign not of love, but of moral weakness. On page 58, the question is asked, is it shame that makes their memories so weak, or simply fear? Again, it is not at all clear that love is always, or even most frequently, the reason for wanting the past erased. Yeah, The Buried Giant is complex, and I really respected how it made me, as a reader, reckon through some discomforting questions about what we dearly want to remember and why we choose to forget. That said, in the end, Ishiguro doesn't offer clear marching orders as to how we ought to relate to bitter or shameful memories. This is a novel, it is not a prescriptive text. What it is a survey of how humans relate to the past. However, a cautionary portrait is painted when it comes to the suggestion that the best way to deal with historical atrocities or past mistakes is to bury them in a hole and then just plaster over it, because, as one of Beatrice and Axel's questing companion remarks towards the novel's close, it is foolishness to assume that that plaster will hold. Page 286. "Foolishness, sir. How can old wounds heal while maggots linger so richly, or a peace hold forever built on slaughter and a magician's trickery? I see how devoutly you wish it, for your old horrors to crumble as dust, yet they await in the soil as white bones for men to uncover." Thus, if Edmond Dantes exhorted time and silence as remedies for all evils given and received, Ishiguro reports that burying giants buys you only the most uneasy and ephemeral peace. I completely agree, because we are told in Jeremiah 6:14 that burying giants' superficial fixes are not the way to go. Prophet says, "You have treated the brokenness of my people superficially. Peace, peace, you say, but there is no peace." And Proverbs 28:13 tells us that the one who conceals their sins, i.e. the one who buries giants, will not prosper, but the one who confesses and renounces them will find mercy. The fact of the matter is, sin, no matter the size, whether it's a gnat or a giant, cannot be treated with superficial fixes. Left unconfessed and unrepented, sin acts like a cancer. It metastasizes, which means whether it was a gnat or a giant to begin with, left to its own devices, it's only going to get bigger with time. And I don't even want to think about how big a giant to begin with is going to be when it is finally found out. And it will be found out, because we are told in Genesis 4:10, when God confronts Cain after he murders his brother Abel, that the blood of his brother Abel cries out from the ground. So when a giant, unconfessed, unrepented, metastasized sin cries out from the ground, it is going to be an earth-quaking sound, and it's not going to be San Andreas' fault. I'm gonna tell you that right now. All that to say, I completely agree that as long as sins or injustices have only been treated with superficial fixes, there will be no peace. I mean, I know that this was a controversial phrase not too long ago, but I consider no justice, no peace, a statement of metaphysical reality from the perspective of Christianity, because we are told in Isaiah 53, verses 2 through 5, that he had no appearance or form that we should look upon him, nor any beauty that we should desire him. But he was despised and rejected, a man of sorrows, acquainted with grief, one from whom men hide their faces. Yet we despised and esteemed him not. Yet surely he has borne our sorrows and carried our griefs. Yet we regarded him as stricken, smitten by God, and afflicted. But he was pierced for our transgressions. He was wounded for our iniquities. The chastisement for our peace was upon him, and by his wounds we are healed. In Christianity, we believe that the penalty that Jesus paid on our behalf is what enables the peace that we have with God, that the wrath that the Father poured out on the Son made it such that we can enter into fellowship. We are told in 2 Corinthians 5:21 that God made him, Jesus, who knew no sin, to become a curse for us, so that in Jesus we might become the righteousness of God. Jesus didn't bury the giant of our sin. He bore it in his body on the tree. And that is why we are told in Isaiah 9:6, he is our Prince of Peace. And we are given instruction in Matthew 5:9 on the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus said, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God." We are told in Ephesians 5:1, be imitators of God as dearly beloved children. When Christians go out into the world, we are supposed to be peacemakers too. And peacemaking is distinct from peacekeeping. If you've ever seen any of the Hunger Games films, the peacekeepers, those that use their power and might to prop up unjust systems just to maintain the status quo.
Clear the square!
No. Peacemakers are those who say, I am willing to have a violent confrontation with sin, even if it means I lose some skin. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that this was edifying, encouraging, and entertaining, and I hope that you will continue to join me as I visit many good books, but live in the Bible.